I don't respect my dad because he's always choosing his new wife over me. I know the title sounds harsh, but let me explain. I'm 16 female, and I live with my dad, Michael 39, and his new wife, Samantha 32, along with my two younger step-siblings, Olivia 10 and Max 12. My dad has this pattern and honestly, it drives me insane. Ever since my mom passed away when I was 8, he's been with one woman after another, and it's always the same. He just completely bows down to whatever they say. Every time they complain, he'll change things up to keep them happy, to make sure they don't leave. It's like he can't think for himself anymore. I've tried talking to him about it for years, but he always brushes me off. To make matters worse, Samantha is just like the rest of them, but worse in her own way. She's constantly on my case about anything and everything, making snide comments, criticizing me for the smallest things. She even complains to my dad whenever I don't act girly enough, or if I don't agree to babysit her kids for hours when I'm supposed to be studying for my exams. I get it, I'm a teenager, but it feels like she's trying to make me into her little servant. Then, things really hit the fan this week. Samantha got mad at me for not letting Olivia and Max play with my Nintendo Switch. It's a delicate console, and they're not exactly careful. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't safe for them, but she said I was being unreasonable, and that I needed to learn to share. I told her flat out, if you want them entertained, you can let them play with your stuff, but I'm not risking mine. That's when she stormed off and went crying to my dad. I didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently it was. My dad barged into my room, all angry, demanding to know why I was disrespecting him and Samantha. He said I needed to learn respect for both of them. I just lost it. I screamed at him, telling him that I didn't respect him because he was a spineless pushover who would rather cater to Samantha's every whim than stand up for his own daughter. I couldn't hold back anymore. I said he was chronically whipped and that it was pathetic. He just stood there in shock for a moment, then yelled that I was grounded and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I don't think I've ever seen him that mad. Later, my grandmother called. She scolded me for acting like a child and said I needed to apologize to my dad because he provides for me. She told me I was being ungrateful and that no one else would do what he does for me. Honestly, her words cut deep, but I couldn't apologize. It's like everyone's just letting him get away with this. So here I am, wondering if I'm wrong for feeling this way. I'm tired of being pushed aside every time he prioritizes Samantha's feelings over mine. Am I the a-hole for blowing up like that? So I'm going to try to sum things up here now. I did try explaining calmly to Samantha, to her kids, and to my dad about why I didn't want them playing with my Switch. It wasn't about being selfish. It's just delicate, and I didn't want it getting ruined. But Samantha said it wasn't a big deal, that if it broke, it could just be replaced. That's when I snapped. I've tried talking to my dad many times. I even suggested therapy for us both, but he flat out refuses, saying therapy is for crazy people. He brushes me off whenever I try to express how hurt I am by how he treats me and lets Samantha treat me. It's exhausting. I don't expect him to choose me over her all the time, but at least a little bit of balance would be nice. I want to clarify that I'm not blaming my dad entirely. I know he wants to make things work with Samantha, but it feels like he's sacrificing everything, including his relationship with me, just to keep her happy. I don't want to come off as a brat, but it's hard to watch him put someone else's needs first when he's supposed to be my dad. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry you're having to deal with a parent who refuses to stand up for you. I can't even imagine how frustrating it must be to feel invisible in your own home. You have every right to be upset. You're a minor, and your dad is supposed to be your protector. It's heartbreaking that he's not supporting you like he should. Hopefully, things will get better when you're out of the house and have your own space. Not the a-hole. Honestly, I'm tearing up reading this. It's so unfair that you're being treated like this by your dad and his wife. You're not being disrespectful. You're being a person with needs. And it sucks that no one seems to see that. I really hope things get better for you soon. You deserve so much more than this. Not the a-hole. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Your dad has been putting his relationships with these women over his relationship with you for years. It's not just about a Switch. It's about him failing to protect you from being disrespected. You're allowed to be angry, not the a-hole. Your dad is so caught up in making Samantha happy that he's neglecting his responsibility to you. I hope one day he realizes that being a good dad means standing up for his kids, even if it's uncomfortable. You're not wrong for wanting to be treated with respect. News story. My stepmom said I was insensitive for naming my daughter after my mom, without giving her a heads up. Okay. So am I the a-hole here for not giving my stepmom a heads up before naming my daughter after my mom? I'll be the first to admit that I probably could have handled this better, but I really don't think I'm the one in the wrong. I'm 24 female, and I had my daughter last month. I named her after my mom because my mom and I have always been so close, and I wanted to honor her by giving my daughter her name. It's actually my mom's nickname, because my mom never uses her full name. So that's the name my daughter now has. Here's where it gets tricky. My daughter's middle name is my father-in-law's middle name. My husband and I wanted to honor him because he's been a father figure to him and has been incredible to us throughout the years. The problem came when we announced our daughter's name, and my stepmom Debbie, 47, flipped out. She immediately started saying I was being insensitive because she's been in my life since I was 5 years old. And if I was honoring one mom, why couldn't I honor both? She basically made it clear that I was a terrible person for leaving her out of this special moment. Honestly, the whole situation was a bit awkward. Yes, Debbie has been in my life for a long time, but growing up, I always spent more time with my mom. My relationship with Debbie has never been close. I've tried, but we've just never really clicked. And as I got older, I became more distant from my dad too. I still love him, but the relationship just hasn't been what I hoped it would be. So, when Debbie brought this up, I tried to explain that it wasn't meant to hurt her. I just really wanted to honor my mom, but that only made things worse. She said I should have at least given her a heads up, so she could prepare herself for the fact that the girl she thought of as a daughter didn't consider her a mom figure enough to include her in the naming. After that, things really blew up. Debbie got angry, accusing me of not thinking about her feelings and being thoughtless, which I thought was unfair. This conversation got more heated, and she ended up telling me that she felt unimportant and rejected. The guilt trip was real, and now the tension in the family is unbearable. She's angry, sad, and it's just a mess. So now I'm here, wondering if maybe I should have done more to soften the blow. Was I wrong for not preparing her for this? Or is she overreacting? I'm going to try to sum things up here now. I know this is a really sensitive issue, and I probably could have been more considerate in how I handled the situation. But I feel like there's only so much I can do to manage everyone else's emotions when I'm making a decision that's so personal to me. My mom meant a lot to me, and it wasn't about leaving Debbie out. It was just about honoring the bond I had with my mom. And yes, I get it. Debbie has been in my life a long time, but I also have to be true to myself and the relationship I had with my mom. Some of you have mentioned that I should have asked for her opinion or talked to her beforehand, and I get that, but I didn't think it was necessary. I figured this would be a happy occasion, and I didn't expect any drama. I've always struggled with the idea of a blended family, and I don't think I should be expected to honor both moms when the reality is I have one who's no longer with us and another I'm just not that close with. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Honestly, you aren't responsible for your stepmom's feelings, especially in a situation that's so personal to you. You named your daughter after your mother, who you have a deep connection with, and that's what matters most. I don't know why people think you owe an explanation for that. It's your child, and you made a decision that felt right for you and your family. It's a bit ridiculous for your stepmom to expect to be honored too, especially when your relationship with her isn't as close as she thinks. Honestly, I think she's being selfish by turning this into a personal attack. Not the a-hole. I'm honestly shocked by your stepmom's reaction. You don't owe her anything, especially not a heads up about your daughter's name. It's your baby, your choice, and you named her after someone who meant the world to you. If Debbie was so invested in being a mom, then maybe she should have worked harder to build a better relationship with you. It's pretty clear that she's just using this as an excuse to guilt trip you. And for the record, expecting you to honor both moms equally is pretty selfish on her part. Not the a-hole. Seriously, your stepmom has some nerve. You didn't intentionally leave her out, but she's choosing to make this about herself. It's your child, and you named her after someone you loved. I honestly don't know how Debbie could think she deserves to be honored after everything you've said about your relationship. This was a moment to celebrate your baby, not to cater to other people's feelings. She could have been happy for you, but instead, she made it about her own insecurities. You're doing the right thing by standing your ground, not the a-hole. I can't believe Debbie is so upset about this. You named your daughter after someone who meant everything to you, and now she's trying to turn your joyous moment into her pity party. It's disappointing to see that. She's making it about her instead of supporting you. You're a grown adult, and you can honor whoever you choose. You're not obligated to satisfy everyone's expectations, especially when their relationship with you isn't as strong as they think it is. News story. My mom had a failing marriage with my stepdad, and she blamed it on me. I'm 28 female, and my mom is currently going through a divorce. She and my stepdad have been married for 18 years. They got married when I was 7, just 10 months after my dad passed away. As you can imagine, I wasn't exactly thrilled about that. I was angry, I was grieving, and here she was, moving on as if my dad never existed. I remember telling her that if she could replace my dad so quickly, then she didn't love him as much as me. She'd get furious and tell me I had no right to say that she had a right to be happy, but I still couldn't get past how fast it all happened. I wasn't ready to let go of my dad, and her jumping into a new marriage felt like a slap in the face. For years, it was like we were stuck in this loop. Every day we'd argue about it. She'd tried to force me to bond with her new husband, but I just couldn't. It wasn't the right time for me, and I had no support. Nothing to help me process my grief. I just saw her as moving on while I was stuck in the past, feeling like I could never get my mom back. Over time, the fighting stopped, but it was like we were just coexisting. We barely talked, and even when we did, it was awkward. Fast forward to today, and we're still not close, but we keep in touch occasionally. Then, this Christmas, yes, around the holidays, she told me about the divorce. At first, I didn't say much, but then, earlier this month, she dropped a bombshell. She told me that I needed to apologize for my role in her marriage falling apart. Apparently, by constantly telling her that she couldn't have loved my dad if she remarried so quickly, I made her doubt herself, which led to her leaving my stepdad. According to her, I destroyed her marriage and ruined her happiness. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her that I was just a grieving kid, and that she didn't give me any tools to cope with the loss of my dad. She refused to help me, and instead of supporting me, she rushed into a marriage that I wasn't ready for. I told her she needed to own her part in the marriage, failing because she was the adult. She responded by saying, at the very least, I owed her an apology for being so cruel when all she was trying to do was be happy. I told her I didn't know her anymore, that she wasn't the mom I once knew. She didn't help me when I needed her most. She was the one who didn't deal with things properly, and now she was blaming me for everything going wrong in her life. Now, I feel guilty because maybe, even though I was a child at the time, I should apologize to her. Maybe I said some things that were too harsh, but it's hard for me to see how I could have ruined her marriage when, for 18 years, things seemed to be working fine. She's only now blaming me because it's convenient, but I feel like she's trying to shift the responsibility away from herself. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if I truly owe her an apology. I just feel so conflicted and emotionally drained. So, am I the a-hole for saying all of this to her? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You were a grieving child who had no support at the time. Your mom was the adult here, and she should have handled things differently. You didn't cause the divorce, and for her to try and pin it on you is insane. The fact that she's asking you to apologize is outrageous. Honestly, I'm just shocked she has the audacity to blame a 7-year-old for her problems. You were just processing your grief, and it sounds like your mom wasn't emotionally available to help you. She needs to take responsibility for her own actions and stop using you as a scapegoat, not the a-hole. This is a classic case of narcissism. Your mom is deflecting blame and making everything about her. You were a child who needed help processing a major loss, and she failed you. You didn't ruin her marriage. She did that herself by not listening to your feelings or giving you the space to grieve. The fact that she's now asking you to apologize is beyond ridiculous. She needs a reality check. The whole situation sounds like emotional manipulation, and it's not okay for her to blame you for something that was her responsibility as the adult, not the whole. You were 7 years old. You didn't have the emotional maturity or support to process what was happening, and your mom was too focused on herself to help you. She's using you as a scapegoat for her own choices, and that's unfair. If her marriage ended, it's because of her decisions, not because of something a child said. The fact that she can't own up to her part in the divorce is truly telling. You didn't ruin her happiness. She did that by not taking care of her relationship with you. She's the one who needed to heal, not you, not the whole. This situation hits close to home for me, and it's hard to stay objective. But the truth is your mom had choices, and she chose to ignore your needs when you were grieving. You didn't handle everything perfectly, who would at that age? But she was the adult and should have known better. If the marriage fell apart because of something you said when you were 7, then it was already doomed long before that. Your mom needs to stop deflecting and take accountability for her own actions. You're not responsible for her marriage or her happiness.